Good evening, everyone. Thanks for taking a break from baseball to join me this evening, or is that already over? That's probably already over. How could it be over? It seems to never end. But I just had to come on and rant about this because I thought this was so funny. The Washington Post, okay, they decided not to endorse Hitler's opponent, or who they've framed as Hitler for the last 7 years now. 8 years, 9 years, almost 9 years. Um, and okay, so all that happened before for this huge Washington Post meltdown, staff meltdown, is the owner was like, we're just transparently propaganda for the Democratic Party. Why don't we, we're losing credibility. No one in the country trusts us anymore. Why don't we could we try being objective journalists? Try being neutral? Um, and so they decide, ownership said, we're not going to endorse somebody for president this year round. This for the first time in about 30, almost 40 years, I think. And the staff's like, no, we have to endorse Kamala because and their reasons are absolutely absurd. They say, they argue that is not like, that's not the job of a journalist to be neutral and objective. It's just the twisted logic it's just fascinating. And I don't know. I've got a few examples to share with you guys. Goodness. So this guy Parker Thaler has a good thread, and this is just these are all Post employees just reacting to the news. Jesus Christ, this columnist says. Oh my God, we're gonna pretend to not be a total partisan for a week and a half this year. I mean, this one is very good, very funny. Brianna something or other. She goes, first of all, she's a so you look at her profile on Washington Post, she's a climate change reporter, but she's covering natural disasters. So like that doesn't mean it's climate change necessarily. I mean, and yet she refers to herself as a climate change reporter, even in her Washington Post bio. She's reporting on natural disasters. Just anyway. So, and she goes, now her logic is, we won a Pulitzer Prize for public service for our coverage of the January 6th insurrection. So, so obviously, you can tell her logic is like, oh, well, we've written about how Trump's the bad guy because he had this, in their mind, like, failed coup. Is how they see it. So she's like, so it's like, hold on. So the bad thing about January 6th is that it was a failed coup because Kamala actually pulled off a successful one on Joe Biden. Is that what bothers them? They're like, we can't. Anyway, it's like, and then also, of course, to add to the insanity is that they've been framing Trump as Hitler. So like they can't endorse Hitler's opponent. It's just fast. It's so funny. But of course, if you've seen my videos, the notion that Trump is Hitler for using words like that Hitler used, for example, the Post had this whole thing about Trump referring to people as vermin, and Trump and Mussolini did that. Well, the Post did that themselves.
Calls Trump vermin, echoing Trump calls political enemies vermin.
Flashback.
Washington Post calls Trump vermin.
Echoing dictators Hitler and Mussolini. If you know one thing about mass murdering dictators in history, it's that they refer to the people they want to mass murder as vermin, pests, rats.
Washington Post refers to all the Republican rats.
People they want to mass murder.
Trump's Republican rats, the USS Trump rats, Trumpkin rats, the Republicans, the rat. Trump rat will tower over Washington. Here's a pencil sketch of Trump as a rat. Here's another drawing of Trump as a rat. Trump surrogates are rats. Fleeing rats. Hillary Clinton is rat poison for Donald Trump, the rat. Washington Post is
saying your political opponents are vermin.
You feckless.
Echoing dictators Hitler and Mussolini.
The rats are finally eating their young is what's going on here.
None of this is subtle.
All the Republicans are treasonous rats.
He really does seem to be trying to get them excited about the possibility of cathartic violence. Mass murdering dictators refer to the people they want to mass murder as vermin, pests, rats, right? Anything to make their followers see those people as something to be exterminated, not someone you might know. Violence. Saying your political opponents are vermin who must be rooted out and crushed to save the country.
Flashback.
The Post said, Trumpism must be crushed.
None of this is subtle. His political opponents are vermin who will be crushed and exterminated.
Okay, and there you have it. So, total hypocrites. It makes no sense framing Trump as Hitler, and Glenn Greenwald made he's so good with words and just points out, it's so clear. Like, okay, yeah, if all Hitler ever did was use these words, okay, but that's not what makes Hitler Hitler. That's not what makes Hitler the bad guy. It's using degrading people or using dehumanizing language, calling people rats. And as this compilation showed, the Post has done that for years, framing Republicans as rats, and I found so many more examples since then. So many. Like here's the Post's Pulitzer Prize winning cartoonist. It's just at one after the other. Look, Donald Trump as a rat, Donald Trump Jr. as a rat. It just never ends. It goes back as far as the Republicans, Nixon. All reigning Republican rats. Donald Trump and his rats on a sinking ship. There's just so many examples. It's wild. Like, so the Washington Post audience it's just part of their regular diet is, imagery that dehumanizes Republicans and Trump as just dehumanizes them, period. And as rats, at least that's one of the common metaphors. And it's just wow. Oh, and it goes. I found this one older, and it's the cartoonist. I don't know if you can see, but it's very little. It says terrorists on the tail. So, and this is from 2001. So she and the Post are using the image of a rat to describe terrorists, or to as a symbol of terrorism and terrorists. And so that's how low the rat is to the and then just a few years later, and the terrorists, they're like, Republicans are terrorists. You're using rats to describe them both, or to illustrate them both. Pretty amazing. Okay. But back to this Washington Post meltdown over management's decision to not endorse Kamala Harris. And let me get the other screen. Window. There we go. All right. So I guess since we're on this one, we'll pick it up with this one. So Karen, what's her name? Karen Attiah. She is saying that I didn't sign up to be a journalist to be silent on what matters most. I didn't come here to be a coward. Some of us really truly believe in speaking truth to power. We were betrayed today. And so, I mean, I asked, all right, what truth have you spoken to Kamala Harris, the woman in power right now? I mean, just how wild is that? That they think endorsing Kamala Harris, the woman in power, is speaking truth to power. Kamala Harris is known, like, if these people weren't living in a bubble, they know that Kamala Harris, and I just wrote a whole thread, an article on it. She initiated the unprecedented level of censorship we experienced during COVID and leading up to COVID, when she called for the banning of Donald Trump on Twitter over a year before January 6th. And if anyone has actually read the tweets that Twitter banned him for right after January 6th, it's absurd. There's no reasonable person would interpret those tweets as glorification of violence, and yet he was removed from Twitter and virtually every other social media platform. I mean, just the irony. I go, if you believe in speaking truth to power, why endorse a woman in power who silenced spoken truth across the whole internet? They censored true information. The social media companies censored true information after, due to intense pressure from the Biden-Harris administration. It's been documented by the Committee on the Weaponization of Government, and in all my threads and posts. It's the Twitter files, the Facebook files, the YouTube files, which all came from Jim Jordan's, Committee on the Weaponization of Government. So that, if you wondered why they don't like Jim Jordan, that's why. Okay. And then even Marty Baron. So he is the former executive editor of the Post. He goes, this is cowardice on the lack of political endorsement. This is cowardice with democracy as its casualty. Real Donald Trump will see this as an invitation to further intimidate owner Jeff Bezos and others, disturbing, spineless at an institution famed for courage. What courage? It takes no courage to do what they've been doing. To just feed their audience whatever the hell, what they know they want to hear. Well, and they do it because clearly they're part of the same, cultish mindset where Trump is a Russian agent. Oh, give it to me. Trump's a Russian agent. Oh, that's the stuff. That's the stuff. And it's all bullshit in that case, and in many cases, as we've seen over and over, like the court cases against them. But it's cowardice to try to actually even just appear neutral for a change. They call that cowardice. No, it takes way more courage. It takes courage to actually, separate yourself. Know you're going to get attacked, from both sides. Even that's what happens if you, really go independent. Either side's going to attack you whenever, because you don't have a set narrative. If you're truly independently reporting things, you're going to get attacked from both sides because you're going to say things that, both people on both sides don't want to hear. It doesn't take balls to just repeat the narrative of your tribe. And that is what the Post has been doing, like at an ever increasing level. And to the point where like the staff has a freaking meltdown when you just say, we want to try being neutral or just appearing neutral for 1.5 weeks at the end of the year. Incredible. Oh, I actually have a video of Marty Baron, the former Post former Post executive editor. And here we go. This is just a quick summary. So the ex-Washington Post editor, Marty Baron, he goes, not endorsing Kamala Harris is, quote, deeply concerning because we need to continue, because they need to continue, the Washington Post needs to continue with their mission of independent journalism. Right? Just how mind-boggling is this? This is someone who you would think is a smart, logical, intelligent person. And I'm sure in some ways he is, but this makes no sense at all. He's arguing that his profession, his career profession of journalism requires endorsing the Democratic Party candidate in order to continue their mission of independence. You need to kiss the feet of a Democrat or any of a political party to continue independent journalism. I'll let you hear it from the horse's mouth. It takes him a minute to get to it, but he says it at the end. It's unbelievable. All right, let me pull this up.
To Republicans as well. Is this, in spite of what you said in terms of what is behind it, a wise business decision for the Post?
Well, I don't think it's a...
Sorry.
Michael Jordan wants to sell sneakers to Republicans as well. Is this, in spite of what you said in terms of what is behind it, a wise business decision for the Post?
Well, I don't think it's a wise business decision. I mean, the fact is, there are a lot of people canceling their subscriptions, which is troubling because, look, I mean, the news coverage is very good at the Post. I am very proud of the work that my former colleagues are doing at the Post. They've been doing it independently. They've been holding Trump accountable. They've been reporting independently on Kamala Harris as well. They've been reporting independently on all sorts of candidates and on issues. I am grateful for that. But look, there are a lot of readers who are deeply disappointed in this decision, have seen it as a sign of weakness on the part of the ownership of the Post, and have decided they don't wish to support that. And in showing their disgust with this decision, they've decided to cancel their subscriptions. That's going to hurt a lot of good reporters and other journalists at the Post, and that's deeply concerning because they need to continue with their mission of independent journalism. But in the short run, as a business decision, it's a very bad one, and I think it's a bad one in the long run as well. Independent and other journalists at the Post, and that's
deeply concerning because they need to continue with their mission of independent journalism. Here we go. You have to hear it again because it's so. I mean, it's so mind-boggling. I'm going to play it again just so. It's hard to believe this is real, but it's right here. You have this famous award-winning journalist who used to head the Washington Post say that not endorsing Kamala Harris is, quote, deeply concerning because the Post needs to continue with their mission of independent journalism.
They've decided to cancel their subscriptions. That's going to hurt a lot of good reporters and other journalists at the Post, and that's deeply concerning because they need to continue with their mission of independent journalism. But in the short run, as a business decision, it's a very bad one, and I think it's a bad one in the long run as well.
Amazing. You should read the Chiron. WaPo will no longer endorse presidential candidates. Yeah, and he's saying that I just can't get over how wild that is. That is concerning to him because they need to continue with their mission of independent journalism. What he should just be honest. It's concerning to him, or it might be concerning to management because it means their reader base is, going to unsubscribe because they don't subscribe for neutral, objective journalism. Clearly, I mean, that's what's been. I mean, it was obvious before, but now it's beyond obvious, right? I mean, they could pretend and say that they were subscribing for real news, but clearly that's not the case anymore. And it hasn't been for a long time. But how could they say that now? They can't. Okay, it gets funnier. Just keeps getting. There's just more and more comedy. It never ends. So the Washington Post Guild, their union, wrote on this. And like I say, Washington Post staff, quote, deeply, and they use the same word, kind of funny, or same terminology. Washington Post staff, quote, deeply concerned to not be transparent Democrat Party propaganda for 1 week this year. And what they write, we are deeply concerned that the Washington Post, an American news institution in the nation's capital, would make the decision to no longer endorse presidential candidates, especially a mere 11 days ahead of an immensely consequential election. The role of an editorial board is to do just this? The role of an editorial board is to endorse politicians of newspapers? Like, that's what the newspaper's job is, to just endorse politicians. Wow. At least they're being open about it. I mean, that's certainly not, God, maybe they do teach that in journalism school now. I mean, that is wild. I thought it was to actually, speak the truth that the people in power don't want to hear. To actually speak the truth about what's happening, at the upper echelons of power. The role of but no, the according to the Washington Post Guild, the role of an editorial board is to endorse not just presidential candidates, but a presidential candidate like Kamala Harris, who was an awful presidential candidate. Amazing. The goal, or the role of an editorial board, is to do just this, to share opinions on the news impacting our society and culture and endorse candidates to help guide readers. It's not to help inform readers. It's to help guide readers to vote for the people we want them to vote for. Not to inform readers, to guide readers. Interesting. The message from our chief executive, Will Lewis, not from the editorial board itself, makes us concerned that management interfered with the work of our members in editorial. So that's reference. So they had an endorsement all, ready to go, but management said, no, we're not doing that. So that's what they're referring to. According to our own reporters and guild members, an endorsement for Harris was already drafted. There you go. And the decision to not publish was made by the Post's owner, Jeff Bezos. We are already seeing cancellations from once loyal readers. This decision undercuts the work of our members at a time when we should be building our readers' trust, not losing it. I mean, you would think, as a reader, I would trust somebody to have a more clear-headed take if they didn't always endorse, the same goddamn party every election, or even just to outright endorse someone. You're just kind of giving away. You're just showing like, all right, you're all in for one person, So once you do that, you kind of lose some objectivity, right? I don't know. One could argue, if you pick someone, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense. It's all backwards logic. So loyal readers. Oh, I thought that was funny. So after this, you saw all those Post reporters talking about how we need to endorse the woman in power to hold power accountable. They're owned by fucking Jeff Bezos. I think he's the second richest person in the world. All right. Another funny thing. So I don't know if you guys noticed that in the second to last paragraph, it goes, according to our own reporters, let me zoom in, maybe you can catch it, but it won't zoom anymore. According to our own reporters and guild members, an endorsement for Harris was already drafted, and the decision to not to publish. The decision to not to publish. Guys, this is to not to publish? You mean to not publish? This is the union for professional writers. And they can't even write. This is a 2-paragraph statement, and they totally fucked up that sentence. I mean, I'm not much of a wordsmith myself, but that's pretty funny. And it's bigger than this. So the News Guild, which is, beyond a guild larger than the Post, apparently the News Guild is the largest union of communications employees in North America. So they also had a statement about this. I mean, just think about it. So it's not just the Post that's totally backwards. It's all of these professional journalists. I mean, that thinks that it's this big that it's the end of democracy for a news organization to attempt to remain neutral in an election instead of that's insane. But just being ridiculous, dishonest propaganda for a political party, that's not a threat to democracy. Where all the news organizations are all just spewing the same lies and propaganda without any evidence to support it in so many cases, that's not a threat to democracy. But not doing that, or just pretending to not do that for 1 week, is a threat to democracy. Which is all that their ownership is doing. They're just pretending to not do it for a week. And speaking of their great journalism, remember that climate change reporter whose response to this was, "We won a Pulitzer for public service for our coverage of January 6th. We have to endorse Kamala Harris because of that for some reason." Well, their coverage of January 6th was awful. The Washington Post lied and said Trumpers killed a police officer on January 6th. He died of natural causes a day later. Washington Post didn't correct that lie until over 3 months later. So here, this is just some examples. They say Brian Sicknick, say he succumbed last week. This is the editorial board. He succumbed last week to injuries sustained in the Capitol at the hands of a mob summoned by President Trump. It's just a complete lie. Now, luckily, as they should, they corrected it, but they corrected it 3 months later. Here's more. They said, and they said he died defending the building. Total bullshit. Next paragraph. Officer Sicknick was pummeled by a rioter wielding a fire extinguisher, according to witnesses. That never fucking happened. So those witnesses were liars, just like many of the Washington Post sources from the intel community typically. I expect that was the case here. Totally unnamed sources, unnamed witnesses, with no evidence whatsoever. But these two anonymous sources, we still have no idea. And the Post put this, the editorial board published this lie in the first and second paragraphs on the January 6th, setting the narrative that the January 6th rioters were murderous. 5 people, I think, died that day. None of them at the hands of the protesters and rioters. And then here you go. Here's the correction. clarification, Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick suffered 2 strokes and died of natural causes the day after he confronted rioters during the January 6th insurrection, according to the DC Medical Examiner. Initial reports that rioters attacked him with a fire extinguisher, cited in an earlier version of this editorial, proved to be incorrect. Now get this. I found, this person's response made me, go back and revisit this. And there's still an article on the Washington Post website that is still saying that Brian Sicknick was killed by Trumpers on January 6th. It's still on the website. So that one editorial was corrected. But look at this. This is still up. It says Sicknick was the first Capitol Police officers to die in an attack since the summer of 1998. He didn't die in an attack. Your own editorial board finally admitted there was no proof of that, and it proved to be completely false. He died of natural causes the following day. Actually, it was the following night from a stroke the following day. I mean, that is insane, guys. How wild is that? Oh, another funny detail. I'll zoom in so you can read along a little bit. That article here, I'll pull up that article just so you can see it. Look, that it's not. It's up right now, and it's been up for over 3 years, almost 4 years now. Right there. Wait. Right. Yeah, there you go. Sicknick was the first Capitol Police officer to die in an attack since the summer of 1998. Complete lie. He did not die in an attack. I mean, and then get this, guys. Just look at this. How many Washington Post journalists you think it took to write this? This is a 1,500 word article with blatantly false information, seriously false information that people still believe this lie. And it was written by, it took 4 journalists to do this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Peter Herman, Rachel Weiner, Joe Heim, Tom Jackman. And if you go through, read all the way through to the bottom, you'll see there's 4 other journalists who contributed to this report. Julia Tate, Oviedo Wiggins, Josh Dawsey, and Spencer H. Hugh. So that's 8 Washington Post journalists to write 1,500 words, at least one of which is just disgusting propaganda lie, a verifiable lie. And it's still up uncorrected. Not one of 8 journalists who worked on this short 1,500 word article has bothered to correct that lie that their own editorial board admitted was a lie. And the editorial board doesn't care. I mean, it's just what a trash paper. How can people, it's just, but the issue is that they won't endorse Kamala Harris, guys. That's the problem with this paper. Oh, okay. Another funny, I don't know, just amusing to me. So remember all those rat cartoons. So this is the Washington Post cartoonist. They did I mean, I don't know if you can call this a cartoon, but this is what they did in response to the Post not endorsing a presidential candidate. And she explains it right here. She says, Ann Telnays, she's the cartoonist. She goes, this is the title. The title is "Democracy Dies in Darkness." How original. And anyway, and this is her cartoon. It says so. This is her cartoon on the post, not endorsing a presidential candidate. That is the subhead. And it's just a fucking black rectangle. I mean, this is wild, guys. There's just so many levels of wild. The paper saying that Trump was Hitler because he referred to his political opponents as rats, which the paper has done over and over and over and over and over and over again. And then like it's some like somber the end of democracy because the Post did not endorse a presidential candidate. And then also that this is a Pulitzer Prize winning artist's art. I mean, there's just so many levels of insanity. But yeah. So that's all I had prepared for this evening. If anybody has any questions or super chats, I will respond. Liezel7, yeah, sources say that's what they say. So yeah, fascinating. P. Sheridan, how much money can we launder for this masterpiece? Hell, I'll make you. I can send you a black rectangle. Or hell, I'll write for you. I'll do original reporting on my Substack for you, just for a few bucks a month. Go check it out. orf.report. orf.report. As you can see, just Democrat after Democrat. And these are like, they're sick Democrats. They're sick. I have Democrats, in my family. I would imagine most people in the country do. At least, there's Republican counties, Democrat counties, but you expand as you extend your, maybe your, main family is one, but there's usually other political parties, or the other political party. We only have to, well, basically, as you expand in the family. So we all know people of the other political parties, and they're not bad people, but there are extremists, and many of them work at the Washington Post. And unfortunately, even the ones that aren't extremists, they're obviously being misinformed terribly by, places like the Washington Post, and it's freaking awful. Well, I'm going to leave it at that. I see some new comments. No, well, Mr. Reed, you can tag me on Twitter. Maybe I'll see it that way. My DMs are open. Subscribe. I'll just say subscribe to my Substack so you can comment and I can read all the comments. Thank you all. I've kept you here long enough. Have a wonderful evening. Good night.